Commander stood before the observation window of the warship, staring at the strange shimmer that surrounded Earth's solar system. The barrier had been there for 300 years. No probe could pass through it. No signal could penetrate it. Humanity had sealed themselves away from the galaxy, and no one knew why. The translation is complete, Commander. The voice belonged to his communications officer, a young named. You need to see this. Turned from the window and walked to the main console. The holographic display showed dozens of objects floating in the void beyond the barrier. They were old, ancient by galactic standards, but still functional. Warning beacons. Each one broadcast the same message in hundreds of languages. Do not disturb, do not approach, do not wake them. Read the words 3 times. He had seen many things in his 40 years of military service, but this was different. This was not a threat. This was a plea. How many beacons did we find? He asked. 217, replied. They form a complete sphere around the human solar system. Every approach vector is covered. Who placed them? Unknown, sir, but the technology matches human design from before the silence. Walked back to the window. Earth was somewhere beyond that barrier, hidden and silent. 300 years ago, humanity had been one of the most active species in the galaxy. They explored, they traded, they built colonies on distant worlds. Then, in a single day, every human outside their solar system received the same order: return home immediately. Within a month, humanity had vanished. Every colony abandoned, every ship recalled. Every communication channel went dark. The barrier appeared shortly after, and the warnings began broadcasting their endless message. The door to the command deck slid open. Ambassador has entered, his movements slow and deliberate. He was old, even by standards. His skin had faded to a pale blue, and his eyes carried the weight of too many memories. Commander has said, I hear you have found something interesting. The warning beacons, Ambassador, we have translated them. Has moved to the display and read the message. His expression did not change, but noticed the slight tremor in his hands. You knew the humans, didn't you? Asked, before the silence. I did, has replied. I served as a junior diplomat on there for 5 years. I learned their languages. I studied their culture. They were remarkable people. What happened to them? Hez was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. They learned something that frightened them, something about themselves. I do not know the details. No one outside their species does. But I remember the day they announced the recall. I was in their capital city. I saw the fear in their eyes. Had heard the stories, of course. Everyone had. Some said humanity had created a weapon so terrible they feared using it. Others claimed they had encountered something in deep space that drove them to hide. There were 100 theories and no evidence for any of them. Why are you here, Ambassador? Asked. The Council sent you for a reason. Has gestured to the viewport. Because of what is happening at Prime. Our star is dying, Commander. The scientists give us 6 months, perhaps less. We need to evacuate 4 billion people, and we do not have enough ships. We do not have enough time. Felt his chest tighten. Prime was his family lived there, his children. What does this have to do with humanity? Before the silence, humans were developing new technologies, advanced technologies. I saw some of their research facilities. They were studying stellar mechanics, learning to manipulate the very forces that power stars. Has paused. If anyone in the galaxy can save our sun, it is them. The warnings say not to wake them. I know what the warnings say, has replied, his voice growing stronger. But billions will die if we do nothing. Billions, Commander, my people, your people, we must at least try. Looked at the barrier again. Somewhere beyond it, humanity slept, or hid, or waited. He thought about the beacons, broadcasting their warnings for 3 centuries. Do not wake them. There was urgency in those words, fear. The Council has already made the decision, hasn't it? Asked. They voted this morning. We are authorized to attempt contact. And if the humans refuse to help? Hez did not answer immediately. When he did, his words were careful. Then we will have our answer, but I do not believe they will refuse. Humans were many things, but they were never cruel. Gave the order. The fleet moved closer to the barrier, their most powerful transmitters aimed at the shimmer. They broadcast distress signals in every human language they had on record. They explained the crisis. They asked for help. For 3 days, there was no response. On the 4th day, the barrier began to crack. It started at a single point, a tiny fracture in the shimmer. Then it spread, branching out like lightning across the sky. The beacons went silent, their warnings finally ceasing after 300 years of constant transmission. Watched from the command deck as the barrier collapsed. It fell away in sheets of light, revealing the solar system beyond. Earth hung in the darkness, blue and green and alive. But there was something else. Objects in orbit around the planet, thousands of them, ships perhaps or stations. They were massive, dark, and utterly silent. "Commander," said, his voice shaking, "we are receiving a transmission, audio only. It's in standard galactic common." "Play it." The voice that filled the command deck was human, female, calm, but beneath the calm was something else, something that made skin prickle. "This is Dr. Marsh of Earth. We received your distress call. We are awake now. Your fleet will maintain current position and await further instructions. We are coming." The transmission ended. "Has moved to stand beside. They will help us." Cold woke her first, then came the pain. Dr. Marsh opened her eyes to dim red light and the steady beep of medical monitors. Her muscles screamed in protest as she tried to move. Stasis was never pleasant coming out of it, but this felt worse than usual. Her body felt heavy, disconnected, as if it belonged to someone else. "Easy, doctor, don't try to sit up yet." The voice belonged to a medical technician, his face swimming into focus above her. "You've been under for a long time. Your body needs to adjust." "How long?" asked. Her throat felt like sand. 302 years, 7 months, 14 days. The number hit her like a physical blow. 300 years. She had known it would be long, they all had. But knowing and experiencing were different things. "The others?" she managed to ask. "Waking in sequence. Captain Cole should be conscious within the hour. Administrator Price in 3. The automated systems are bringing everyone up according to the protocol." Closed her eyes. The protocol. They had written it together all those years ago. The plan for what would happen if humanity ever needed to wake from the long sleep. She never thought it would actually happen. She thought they would sleep forever, hidden and safe, while the galaxy moved on without them. "Why did we wake?" she asked. The technician hesitated. "There's a delegation waiting to speak with you. Aliens, they call themselves. They say they need our help." 2 hours later, sat in the command center of Earth's primary orbital station. Her body still ached, but the medical staff had given her something for the pain. Captain Cole sat beside her, his face drawn and tired. He had been one of humanity's finest military minds before the sleep. Now he just looked old. "Show me the message again," said. The communications officer replayed the distress signal. A dying star, billions of lives at risk, a plea for help from the species that might save them. "They woke us for this," said quietly. "After everything we did, after all the warnings, they still came." Understood his frustration. The warnings had been clear. Humanity had put them there for a reason. But she also understood desperation. She had felt it herself 300 years ago when Earth's sun had begun to die. "We need to wait for Helen," said. "We can't make this decision alone." Administrator Helen Price arrived 30 minutes later. She moved with surprising energy for someone who had just emerged from 3 centuries of stasis. Her hair was gray now, the side effects of the long sleep, but her eyes were sharp and alert. "I've reviewed the situation," Helen said without preamble. "They are telling the truth. Their star is collapsing. They have maybe 5 months left." "Can we help them?" asked. Felt her chest tighten. "Yes, we can help them. The question is whether we should." Helen sat down at the conference table. "Explain." 300 years ago, we nearly destroyed our own sun," said. The words came slowly, painfully. "We were trying to reignite a dying star in a neighboring system. We thought we understood the process. We thought we could control it. We were wrong." Leaned forward. The chain reaction spread to Earth's sun. By the time we realized what was happening, it was too late to stop it conventionally. Millions died in the solar storms. Entire cities burned. Our AI systems managed to stabilize the sun, but it took years, years of constant adjustment and monitoring. "That's why we went into stasis," continued. "Not just to hide from what we had done, but to give the AI systems time to finish the work without human interference. We had proven we couldn't be trusted with such power, so we locked it away. We locked ourselves away." Helen was quiet for a long moment. "But we did stabilize the sun. We did learn to control stellar mechanics." "Eventually," agreed. "But at what cost? How many people died because of our arrogance? How many worlds did we almost destroy?" And now another world is dying, Helen said. Not because of anything they did wrong, just the natural end of their star's life cycle. They're asking us to save them. Stood and walked to the viewport. Earth hung below them, beautiful and blue. If we help them, we reveal what we can do. The galaxy will want the technology. They'll want to control stars, to extend the life of dying suns, to reignite dead ones. And they won't understand the danger until it's too late. Then we don't give them the technology, Helen said. We help them this once, and we make it clear that this is all they get. You think they'll accept that? Asked. They'll have to. The alternative is billions dead. Felt the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. She had spent 300 years in dreamless sleep, hoping to never face this choice again. But here it was, demanding an answer. If we do this, she said slowly, we need to be clear about the terms. We help with this crisis and this crisis alone. We don't share the technology. We don't teach them how it works. And when it's done, we go back to sleep. Can we save their star? Helen asked. Pulled up the data on the sun. She studied the numbers, running calculations in her head. It's in late collapse. The core is destabilizing, but yes, we can save it. The process is similar to what we did with our own sun. It will take weeks, maybe months, and it will be dangerous, but it can be done. Return to the table. Then we need to move fast. We'll need the stellar manipulation ships, the ones we built during the stabilization of Earth's sun. They're still in orbit, said. The AI systems have been maintaining them. They should be ready to fly. Helen stood. Then here's what we do. I'll meet with the delegation. I'll explain the terms. We help them, but this is not an alliance. This is not a friendship. This is a single act of mercy, and then we return to isolation. They won't like it, warned. They don't have to like it, Helen replied. They just have to accept it. The meeting with Ambassador has took place aboard the flagship. Helen insisted on a face-to-face conversation. She wanted them to see her eyes when she delivered the terms. Has was older than Helen expected. His skin was pale blue, almost translucent, and his movements were careful and precise, but his eyes were kind. Administrator Price, he said, his voice carrying genuine warmth. Thank you for agreeing to see us. Ambassador, Helen replied. I'll be direct. We will help you save your star, but there are conditions. Has nodded. Of course, what do you require? Nothing. This is not a transaction. These are boundaries. We will send our ships and our specialists. We will stabilize your sun, but we will not explain how the technology works. We will not share our methods. And when the work is complete, we will return to Earth and restore the barrier. The ambassador's expression did not change, but Helen saw the disappointment in his eyes. You would help us and then vanish again? For how long? Forever if possible. Our isolation is not punishment, Ambassador. It's protection for us and for you. I do not understand. Helen took a breath. 300 years ago, we nearly destroyed our own world with this technology. We were arrogant. We thought we could control forces we barely understood. People died because of our mistakes. Millions of them. We went into stasis not to escape judgment, but to prevent ourselves from making the same mistake again. Has was quiet for a moment, and yet you will help us. Because you asked, because billions will die if we don't. But this is mercy, Ambassador, not partnership. Do you accept these terms? Do I have a choice? You always have a choice. You can refuse our help and find another way, or you can accept that some knowledge is too dangerous to spread freely. Has looked at her for a long moment. Then he bowed his head slightly. We accept your terms, Administrator Price, and we are grateful for your mercy. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect silence. No fanfare, no announcements, just 7 massive black ships dropping into normal space like shadows taking form. Dr. Marsh stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, watching the dying star grow larger on the. It was red, swollen, its surface boiling with violent storms. She had seen stars like this before. Earth's sun had looked similar during the crisis. The memory made her hands shake. Readings are consistent with late-stage collapse, said Engineer Tyler Grant from his station. He was young, barely 30 when he went into stasis. Now he was the same age, but 300 years displaced. Core temperature is dropping. We have maybe 6 days before it goes supernova. 6 days, Captain Cole turned from the tactical display. The said we had weeks. They were wrong, replied, or their measurements were off. Either way, we need to move faster than planned. Tyler pulled up a holographic model of the star. We can still save it, but we'll need to use the direct injection method. No time for the gradual stabilization. Felt her stomach drop. The direct injection method was dangerous. It required ships to dive deep into the star's outer layers, directly manipulating the core reactions. It was the same technique they had used on Earth's sun, the technique that had killed so many people. "Are you sure?" she asked. Tyler met her eyes. "It's the only way, Doctor. Anything else will take too long." Moved to stand beside. "Then we do it. We came here to save these people. We're not going to fail because we were too afraid to use the tools we have." Wanted to argue, she wanted to find another way, but she knew Tyler was right. They had no choice. "Prepare the injection ships," she ordered. "I want triple redundancies on all safety systems. If anything starts to go wrong, we abort immediately." "Understood," Tyler replied. A communication request flashed on the screen. It was from the flagship. Accepted it. Commander's face appeared. He looked tired, worried. Behind him could see the bridge of his ship, filled with officers watching with obvious concern. "Dr. Marsh said, 'Our sensors are showing increased activity from your vessels. What's happening?' "We're beginning the stabilization process," replied. "Your star is in worse condition than you reported. We need to act now." "How can we assist?" "Evacuate all ships to a safe distance, at least 5 million kilometers, and keep your people calm. What you're about to see may be frightening." Frowned. "What do you mean?" Gestured to Tyler, who brought up the star model. "We're going to inject controlled bursts of matter directly into the star's core. It will trigger a series of fusion reactions that will stabilize the collapse. But the process is violent. The star will appear to be getting worse before it gets better." "How violent?" "There will be solar flares, possibly some mass ejections. Nothing that will reach your inhabited worlds, but your ships need to be clear." Was quiet for a moment. "And your ships, where will they be?" "Inside the star's corona, as close to the core as we can get." "That's suicide." Smiled, but there was no humor in it. "No, Commander, that's just human engineering. We built these ships specifically for this kind of work. They can handle it." Looked like he wanted to argue, but he simply nodded. "We'll move to a safe distance. Good luck, Doctor." The transmission ended. Placed a hand on shoulder. "Are you ready for this?" "No," said honestly, "but we're doing it anyway." The 7 human ships moved into formation. 6 would perform the actual injection, while the 7th ship would coordinate and monitor. Tyler transferred to one of the injection ships, insisting he needed to oversee the process personally. Watched the tactical display as the 6 ships approached the star. They moved with perfect precision, each one following a carefully calculated path. As they drew closer, their shields began to glow, deflecting the intense radiation. On another screen, she could see the fleet withdrawing to a safe distance. Thousands of ships, carrying millions of evacuees from the threatened worlds, all of them watching, all of them hopping. "First injection point in 30 seconds, Tyler's voice came over the communication system. "All ships report ready." Gripped the edge of her console. "Proceed when ready, Engineer Grant." The first ship dove into the star's corona. They could see it disappear into the boiling plasma. For a moment there was nothing. Then the star's surface erupted. A massive flare burst from the injection point, extending millions of kilometers into space. The ships, even at their safe distance, had to adjust their positions to avoid the radiation. "First injection successful," Tyler reported. His voice was calm, professional. "Core temperature increasing, moving to second injection point." One by one, the ships completed their runs. Each injection triggered another violent reaction. The star began to change color, shifting from deep red to orange. Its surface churned and twisted, throwing off enormous amounts of matter. Monitored the readings carefully. The process was working. The core temperature was rising. The collapse was slowing, but there was still one more injection needed, and it was the most dangerous. "Final injection in 60 seconds, Tyler said. "This is the deep core run. I'm taking my ship in personally." Tyler, wait, started to say, but he cut her off. "We don't have time to debate this, Doctor. The window is closing. If I don't make this run now, the star will destabilize again." Looked at, the captain's face was grim, but he nodded. "Go," said, "but at the first sign of trouble you pull out, that's an order." "Understood." Tyler's ship accelerated toward the star. It dove deeper than any of the others, pushing through layers of plasma that would have vaporized any normal vessel. Watched the telemetry, her heart pounding. Approaching core injection depth, Tyler reported. Heat levels are extreme, shields holding at 73%. 73%, said. That's too low, tell him to abort. If he aborts now, the whole process fails, said. We'd have to start over and there's no time. Tyler's ship reached the injection point. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then the star exploded outward. The eruption was massive, far larger than any of the previous ones. A wall of plasma rushed out from the star's surface, expanding in all directions. Alarms blared on its bridge. Tyler report, shouted. Tyler respond. Static filled the communication channel. I'm reading massive radiation interference, the communications officer said. I can't get a clear signal. Was already working his console. His ship took heavy damage. Shields are down to 20%. Hull temperature is critical. Can he make it out? Not at his current speed. The plasma is moving too fast. His mind raced. They could send another ship in, try to create a shield corridor for Tyler to escape through. But that would risk another vessel. Or they could wait, hope that Tyler's ship could withstand the punishment until the plasma wave passed. Neither option was good. Then Tyler's voice crackled over the speakers, weak but steady. I'm still here, Doctor. Ship is damaged but functional. I need to make manual adjustments to the containment field. The automated systems are offline. Manual adjustments, said. Tyler, the radiation levels where you are would kill you in seconds. Then I better work fast. Before could respond, Tyler's voice came again. The injection worked. The star is stabilizing. I can see it on my instruments. We did it, Doctor. We actually did it. Looked at the main. Tyler was right. The star's violent eruptions were calming. Its color was shifting from angry red to a healthier yellow. The collapse had stopped. Tyler, get out of there, she said. Now that's a direct order. Working on it. Just need to reroute some power to the engines. Give me 60 seconds. Those 60 seconds felt like hours. Watched the readings, monitoring Tyler's ship as it fought to escape the star's gravity well. His shields were failing. His hull was beginning to buckle. But slowly, painfully, he pulled away from the star. When his ship finally cleared the danger zone, felt her legs go weak, caught her arm, steadying her. He made it, said quietly. They all made it. The star burned bright and steady, stable, safe. Around it, the worlds would continue to exist, billions of lives saved. Activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships begin withdrawal to rendezvous point. Mission accomplished. As the human fleet regrouped, received another transmission from Commander. When his face appeared, she saw tears in his eyes. Dr. Marsh, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You saved our worlds, you saved our people. We can never repay this debt. We don't want repayment, Commander, replied. We just want to go home. Engineer Tyler Grant lay in the medical bay, his body wrapped in regeneration fields that glowed with soft blue light. The radiation exposure had been severe. His skin was burned, his internal organs damaged. But he was alive, and according to the doctors, he would recover. Dr. Marsh sat beside his bed, watching the medical displays. The technology keeping Tyler alive was human, developed during the long years of stabilizing Earth's sun. They had nothing like it. Their medicine was advanced, but not designed to handle the kind of damage stellar radiation could cause. You should be resting, Tyler said. His voice was weak but clear. I should be yelling at you for taking such a stupid risk, replied. It worked, didn't it? That's not the point. You nearly died. Tyler managed a small smile. But I didn't, and now billions have get to live. I'd say that's a fair trade. Wanted to argue, but she couldn't. She had made the same calculation herself 300 years ago. She had risked everything to save Earth's sun. She had lost friends, colleagues, people she loved. But Earth survived. Sometimes the math was that simple and that terrible. They want to meet with you, she said, changing the subject. They want to thank you personally. Tell them I'm busy being almost dead. I already did. They're waiting anyway. Tyler closed his eyes. How long before we can go home? Another week. We need to monitor the star, make sure the stabilization holds. Captain Cole is coordinating with the fleet. Once we're certain everything is secure, we'll return to Earth. And then back to sleep. Nodded back to sleep. For how long this time? As long as it takes, as long as the galaxy will let us. On the bridge of the flagship, Commander stood before a holographic display of the stabilized star. The data was clear. The crisis was over. The star would burn steadily for millions of years. His was safe. His children would grow up under a stable sun. But victory felt hollow. He had seen what humanity could do. He had watched their ships dive into a dying star and bend it to their will. He had witnessed technology that his species wouldn't develop for thousands of years, if ever. And now those humans were preparing to leave, to seal themselves away again, to hide their knowledge behind warnings and barriers. It felt wrong. "You are troubled, Commander?" Ambassador has had entered the bridge quietly. The old moved to stand beside. "They saved us," said. "Billions of our people are alive because of them, and we're just going to let them disappear again." That was the agreement. The agreement was made under duress. We were desperate. We would have agreed to anything. Has turned to face fully. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we ask them to stay, to share their knowledge. Think of what we could accomplish together. Think of how many other worlds we could save." "And if they refuse?" Was quiet for a moment. "Then we convince them. We show them that the galaxy needs them, that hiding is selfish." Has his expression hardened. "Be very careful, Commander. You are speaking of breaking our word, of betraying people who just saved our species." "I'm speaking of survival, not just for us, but for everyone. How many other stars are dying right now? How many species are facing extinction because they don't have the technology to save themselves? Humanity has that technology. They have a moral obligation to share it. They also have a moral obligation to protect the galaxy from dangerous knowledge. They learned that lesson in blood. Who are we to tell them they learned it wrong?" Clenched his fists. "I watched my nearly die ambassador. I watched my people prepare for extinction. And these humans, they fixed it in days. Days. They have power that could save the entire galaxy, and they want to lock it away. Because they nearly destroyed themselves with that same power," has said firmly. "Because they understand the danger in ways we cannot. Because they are trying to protect us from making their mistakes. Or because they want to keep that power for themselves." The words hung in the air like a physical thing. Has stared at for a long moment, disappointment clear in his eyes. "I remember the humans before the silence," has said quietly. "They were not perfect, no species is, but they were not greedy. They did not hoard knowledge or power. If anything, they shared too freely, too quickly. That was part of what led to their crisis. They gave advanced technology to species that were not ready for it. Then they should trust us to be ready now. Why? Because we asked for their help, because we were desperate. That's not wisdom, Commander, that's just need." Turned away from the display. "The Council will want to discuss this. They will ask humanity to reconsider. And humanity will refuse. And then what will you do?" Didn't answer. He didn't have an answer. 3 days later, Administrator Helen Price received a formal request from the Council. They wanted to open negotiations for a technology sharing agreement. They wanted humanity to train scientists in stellar mechanics. They wanted access to the human ships, the human systems, the human knowledge. Helen read the request twice, then called a meeting with And. "They're not going to let us leave quietly," said. He paced the small conference room, his frustration obvious. "I knew this would happen. We saved them, and now they want more." "Can you blame them?" asked. "We just showed them it's possible to save dying stars. Of course they want to learn how." "That's exactly why we can't teach them," Helen replied. She sat down, though, with the request. "They saw the result, but they didn't see the cost. They don't know how many people died when we first tried this. They don't understand how close we came to destroying Earth completely." "Then we explain it to them," said. "We show them the records, we make them understand." "They won't care," said. "They'll think they can do it better. They'll think they can avoid our mistakes. That's what we thought 300 years ago." Helen stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, the fleet hung in space, thousands of ships representing billions of saved lives. "We need to refuse their request, politely but firmly, and then we need to leave before this becomes a conflict." "What if they try to stop us?" asked. "They won't. They're not stupid. They know what our ships can do. But they might try to follow us, track us back to Earth, wait for another opportunity." Helen nodded slowly. "Then we make sure they can't. We'll use the same stealth systems we used to create the original barrier. By the time we reach Earth, we'll be invisible to their sensors. Looked troubled. This feels wrong. We're treating them like enemies. They just want to protect their people the same way we're trying to protect ours. I know, Helen said, but sometimes protection means saying no. Sometimes it means being the ones who bear the burden of terrible knowledge so others don't have to. The refusal was delivered the next day. Helen met with Ambassador Has personally out of respect. The old listened quietly as Helen explained humanity's position. They would not share the technology. They would not train scientists. They would return to Earth and restore their isolation. I understand your decision, Has said when Helen finished, and I will support it before the Council, but you should know that many will not be satisfied with this answer. I know, Helen replied, but it's the only answer we can give. May I ask you something, Administrator? Of course. Do you ever regret it? The isolation, the long sleep? Do you wish humanity had chosen a different path? Helen considered the question. Every day, but regret doesn't change what's right. We made mistakes, terrible mistakes, and we have a responsibility to prevent others from making those same mistakes, even if they hate us for it. Has nodded sadly. Then I wish you peace, Administrator Price. I hope you find it in your long sleep. And I hope your people thrive under their saved son, Ambassador. That's what we came here to ensure. As Helen prepared to leave, Has spoke once more. The warnings were right, you know. We should not have woken you. Not because you are dangerous to us, but because forcing you to carry this burden again was cruel. Helen paused at the door. Thank you for understanding that. Not many do. The human fleet departed 3 days later. Tyler had recovered enough to travel, though he would need months of additional treatment. The 7 black ships formed up in perfect formation and engaged their faster-than-light drives. From his viewport, Commander watched them go. He had argued for the Council to pursue them, to demand they share their knowledge. But Ambassador Has had convinced the majority to honor the agreement. As the last human ship vanished from his sensors, felt a mixture of relief and loss. Relief that his people were safe, loss for what might have been. They will sleep again, Has said beside him, and the galaxy will move on without them. Until the next crisis, said, until someone else needs them. Journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of silence as the human fleet crossed the void between stars. 2 weeks for Dr. Marsh to think about what they had done and what it meant. She stood in the medical bay, watching Engineer Tyler Grant sleep. The regeneration fields had done their work. His burns were healing. His organs were repairing themselves. In a few months, he would be almost as good as new. But the scars would remain, invisible marks that only he would carry. He's going to be fine. Captain Cole entered the medical bay quietly. The doctors say he'll make a full recovery. I know, replied. I just keep thinking about how close we came to losing him, how close we came to failing. But we didn't fail. We saved billions of lives. And woke ourselves up in the process. 300 years of sleep gone. Now we have to decide if we go back under or stay awake. Moved to stand beside her. Administrator Price already made that decision. We're going back to sleep. The barrier will be restored. The warnings will resume broadcasting. And if someone else needs us, if another star dies, then the AI systems will wake us again, just like they did this time. Paused. You don't agree with the decision. Turned to face him. I don't know what I think anymore. We have knowledge that could save countless lives, technology that could prevent so much suffering, and we're choosing to lock it away. Because that same technology nearly killed us all. I know the arguments, I helped write them. But after seeing their desperation, their fear, I wonder if we're being selfish. If we're using our past mistakes as an excuse to avoid responsibility. Was quiet for a moment. You know what I think the real reason is, why we're so afraid to share this technology. Tell me. Because we don't trust ourselves. We nearly destroyed Earth 300 years ago because we were too confident, too sure we could control forces we barely understood. We're afraid that if we teach others, they'll make the same mistakes. But more than that, we're afraid we'll be the ones to make those mistakes again, that we haven't really learned anything. Felt the words hit home. Maybe you're right, maybe we are afraid of ourselves. Then perhaps the sleep is not about protecting the galaxy from us. Perhaps it's about protecting us from ourselves, giving us time to change, to grow, to become worthy of the power we possess. And how long does that take? How long do we sleep before we're ready? Smiled sadly. I don't know, maybe forever. Maybe there is no amount of wisdom that makes such power safe. The human fleet entered Earth's solar system 3 days later. The planet hung in space exactly as they had left it, beautiful and blue and alive. But something felt different too. The weight of what they had done, what they knew, pressed down on her shoulders like a physical burden. Administrator Helen Price called a final meeting in the command center of the primary orbital station. The entire leadership was present. Scientists, engineers, military officers, civilian administrators, everyone who had been awakened to handle the crisis. We have a decision to make, Helen began. The crisis is resolved. We have honored our agreement. Now we must decide our next steps. We return to stasis, said one of the military officers. That was always the plan. The plan was made 300 years ago, another voice argued. Things have changed. We've changed. Maybe it's time to reconsider our isolation. And do what? Asked. Rejoin galactic society, share our technology. We've been through this. We know how it ends. We know how it ended once, said. That doesn't mean it has to end that way again. Helen raised her hand for silence. Before we debate this further, I want to share something. While we were helping our AI systems continued monitoring galactic communications, they found something interesting. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed intercepts of council meetings, discussions among their leadership about humanity. Some wanted to honor our agreement, Helen explained. Some wanted to pursue us to demand we share our knowledge, but there was a third group, a small group but vocal. They argued that humanity was too dangerous to allow to exist, that we should be destroyed before we could threaten the galaxy. The room went silent. It never came to a vote, Helen continued. Ambassador Has and Commander managed to convince the Council to let us leave peacefully, but the fact that it was even discussed tells us something important. That the galaxy fears us, someone said. No, Helen replied. That the galaxy doesn't understand us. They see our power and assume we'll use it the way they would, for conquest, for domination. They can't conceive of a species that would voluntarily limit itself. Then we need to show them, said. We need to demonstrate that power and wisdom can coexist. And how do we do that while we're asleep? Asked. Had been thinking about this question for days. Now, standing before the leadership of humanity, she finally had an answer. We don't sleep forever, she said. We sleep in shifts. We maintain a presence in the galaxy, but a limited one. We respond to existential crises, but nothing else. We become exactly what Ambassador has called us, guardians, not rulers, not teachers, just guardians. Helen looked interested. Explain. We restore the barrier around Earth. We put most of humanity back into stasis. But we leave a small group awake, maybe a few thousand people, enough to maintain the warning systems, to monitor galactic communications, to respond if another crisis arises. They serve for 20 years, then they go into stasis, and another group wakes up. And what about the technology? Someone asked. Do we share it or not? We don't share how it works, replied. But we offer our services. If a star is dying and a species needs help, they can activate the beacons. We wake up. We help. Then we go back to sleep. We become a resource, but not a teacher. We save lives, but we don't give away the tools to do it. Nodded slowly. It's a compromise, not perfect, but better than complete isolation. It's also dangerous, another officer pointed out. What if someone tries to capture our people, study our technology by force? Then they learn why we put up the warnings, said quietly. Our ships are not just for stellar manipulation. They were designed to defend Earth if necessary. Anyone who tries to take our technology by force will regret it. Helen looked around the room, gauging reactions. This is a significant change from our original plan. I want everyone to think carefully before we vote. We'll reconvene in 24 hours for a final decision. The vote the next day was close, but the compromise won. Humanity would maintain a guardian presence in the galaxy. 3,000 people would remain awake, rotating in shifts. The rest would return to stasis. Volunteered for the first shift. So did Tyler, despite his injuries, chose to go into stasis, along with most of the military leadership. Helen would remain awake for the first 5 years, then transfer authority to the next administrator. The preparations took 3 weeks. The barrier was restored, stronger than before. The warning beacons were updated with new messages. We sleep so you may live. Wake us only when stars themselves are dying. We are not your teachers. We are not your saviors. We are your last resort. On the final day before the stasis systems activated, stood in the command center with Helen. Through the viewport, Earth turned slowly, peaceful, and serene. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" asked. "I think we're doing the best we can," Helen replied. "We're trying to balance our responsibility to protect with our need to survive. Whether that's right or wrong, history will decide. And if the galaxy calls on us again, if another crisis comes, then we wake up, we help, and we go back to sleep. That's the bargain we've made." Thought about Tyler, already in his stasis pod. About and the others preparing for another long sleep. About the billions of who would live their entire lives under a stable sun, never knowing how close they came to extinction. "The ambassador was right," said. "We shouldn't have been woken, not because we're dangerous, but because the burden is so heavy." Helen placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we carry it together, those of us who remain awake and those who sleep. We share the weight across time." The stasis systems activated at midnight. One by one, the pods sealed, preserving thousands of humans in dreamless sleep. The orbital stations dimmed their lights. The ships powered down to minimal systems. Earth's barrier, a wall of energy separating humanity from the rest of the galaxy. In the command center, watched the numbers tick down. 97% of awakened humanity was now in stasis. 3% remained awake, a skeleton crew to monitor and maintain. She activated the long-range communication system and recorded a final message. It would be broadcast on all frequencies, translated into every known language. "This is Dr. Marsh speaking for humanity. We have heard your crisis. We have answered your call. We have saved your star. Now we return to our long sleep. Do not seek us out. Do not try to wake us. Do not attempt to breach our barriers. We are not your allies. We are not your friends. We are the guardians who sleep between the stars, waiting for the day when death itself threatens all life. That day may never come. We hope it never comes, but if it does, we will wake. We will answer. We will save what can be saved. Until then, let us rest. Let us dream. Let us carry our terrible knowledge in silence. This is our choice. This is our burden. This is our gift to you, the certainty that when all hope is lost, when the stars themselves burn out, humanity will wake to stand between you and the end of everything." The message transmitted across the galaxy, carried by quantum relays that would ensure every civilization heard it. Turned off the communications system and looked at Helen. "Now what?" she asked. "Now we wait," Helen replied. "We watch, we guard, and we hope that the galaxy learns to solve its own problems. And if it doesn't?" Helen smiled. "Then we wake up again and again and again for as long as it takes, because that's what guardians do." Far across the galaxy, commander stood under a stable sun and read the human message. He thought about the dark ships that had saved his people, about the humans who had risked everything to help strangers. Ambassador has stood beside him. "They will sleep for a long time," the old said. "Yes," agreed, "and perhaps that's best. Let them rest, let them heal, let them carry their burdens in peace." "Do you think we will ever truly understand them?" Looked up at the sun, burning bright and steady. "No, but maybe that's the point. Maybe some things are meant to remain mysterious, some sacrifices are meant to go unwitnessed." On Earth, in the darkness of the stasis facility, millions of humans slept. They dreamed of stars and salvation. They dreamed of the day they might wake again. But for now, they rested. And across the galaxy, the warning beacons broadcast their eternal message. Do not wake them, not yet, not unless the stars themselves are dying. The message would continue for centuries, perhaps a promise and a warning echoing through the void. Humanity slept, but they were listening, always listening, waiting for the call that would wake them once more. And when that call came, they would answer, because that was their burden, that was their choice. That was what it meant to be human, to carry impossible knowledge, to wield terrible power, and to use it only in service of life itself. The guardians slept, but they would wake again. The stars would make sure of it. Perhaps we will learn to solve our own problems. Perhaps that is the real lesson they are trying to teach us. Looked at the old ambassador. What lesson is that? That some knowledge must be earned, not given. That wisdom comes from failure and recovery, not from shortcuts and borrowed power. The humans learned to manipulate stars because they had no choice. They nearly died in the process. Maybe the rest of us need to walk our own difficult paths. turned back to the viewport. The space where the human ships had been was empty now, just stars and void. "I hope we never need to wake them again," he said quietly. "So do I, Commander, so do I." Nodded slowly. "I understand, but please know this, the galaxy will remember what you did here today. Humanity may choose to sleep, but we will not forget you." The transmission ended. "Looked at, do you think they'll honor our terms? Let us return to isolation." Gazed at the stabilized star. "I hope so, because if they don't, they'll learn why we put up those warnings in the first place." Helen felt the tension leave her shoulders. "Our ships will depart within 48 hours. We'll need detailed data on your star, everything you have." "You will have it within the hour." As Helen prepared to leave, Has spoke again. "May I ask you something, Administrator?" "You may ask." "The warnings, the beacons. They told us not to wake you. Were they meant to protect us or to protect you?" Helen considered the question. "Both," she said finally. "They were meant to protect both of us." "Yes," agreed. But as he watched those dark ships begin to move in Earth's orbit, he could not shake the feeling that helping was not the only thing humanity would do. The warnings had told them not to wake humanity. They had done it anyway. Now they would learn why the warnings existed in the first place. Beyond the viewport, the first human vessel detached from Earth orbit and began moving toward the fleet. It was larger than any ship had ever seen, its hull black as the void itself. No lights marked its surface. No insignia identified its purpose. It simply moved through space with terrible, silent purpose. Had fought in 3 wars. He had stared down pirate fleets and hostile armadas. But as that ship approached, he felt something he had not experienced in years. He felt afraid,